Hey, it's Ethan here at eTrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the eTrailer 24x60 inch Hitch Cargo Carrier and how it fits on the back of our 2022 Ram 2500. You might be wondering why you would want to use something like this if you already have the bed of your truck, but there's a lot of cases where maybe you have the bed already full of things, maybe you're transporting some larger items, maybe you have a big box in the back. For whatever reason, your setup might be different than anyone else's, so if you do want to get a little bit more storage out of your vehicle, or you're looking to transport something that you don't want to have to lift up quite as high to get over the tailgate, you might want to still look into a Hitch Cargo Carrier like this one. One of the things that sets this carrier apart than a lot of the others is the ability for it to fold up and tilt away. We're going to tilt it away first, but I wanted to grab a ground clearance at the end to give you an idea of how high you're going to need to lift the items that you're putting in the carrier. So at the end here, it's about 25 inches up from the ground. Now to tilt it away, we do have to remove both of these pins. We'll start with this top one because it's typically a little bit easier to slide in and out. Then we'll remove this clip on the other side, and we'll have to lift up a little bit to get the leverage to get this other pin out. It's definitely a little bit heavy, so it's kind of a struggle sometimes, but once it's out, you can tilt this down. And I'll get the new ground clearance to give you an idea of how much space we've saved. So now we're coming in at about 15 3/4 inches. So if you do have some heavier items that maybe you're having some difficulty loading in, and that's the reason you have this carrier to begin with, as long as you have them strapped down, you can tilt them down and you'll get them a lot lower, making it easier to get out. From here, it's easy enough to just fold it all the way back up against the bed of the vehicle. It'll stay relatively in place. There's nothing actually holding it though, so I recommend trying to keep a hand on it if you can while we come back and get these pins. And you'll fit them right back in here at the bottom. Again, you might have to move the actual carrier back and forth a little bit to line it up. But once you're here, you just replace this pin and the clip again, and we'll give you an idea of how much we're sticking out from the back at this point. So in the condensed state, from the bumper to the back end, it's about 16 1/4 inches from the back to the end. So for a pretty long, large carrier, that saves a lot of space. If you want an idea of how close it's sitting to the actual back of our vehicle now, from the furthest point, or from the closest point rather, to the bumper, it's about 6.5 inches. So it doesn't sit very close. It's got a little bit of movement to it, but nothing that I'm going to be worried about making contact with the bed here. Now that we've seen the carrier tilt and fold, I'll get it back into its neutral position just so we can get a better idea of what it's going to look like on the back of the vehicle. Just again, by removing that pin, you will have to hold it in place because this time it's going to want to tilt away. So I start by replacing this pin on top, which should secure it. And then I like to put this pin in facing the other way, because otherwise the clips will interfere with each other a little bit. Again, you will have to wiggle it back and forth a little bit, just the nature of the beast of this carrier, and then replace the clips on either one. Just like that. While it's in this position, I just want to get a couple more measurements, starting with how wide the carrier is internally. So from one inside to the other, comes in at 60 inches. And from the back to the front end of the inside comes in at 24 inches. As far as how deep the carrier will sit, from the bottom to the top is just under 5.5 inches. So that's how much usable storage you're going to have for your items and how much contact the rails are going to make with the items that you're storing. As far as how much length you're adding to the back of your vehicle in total, we already got that folded up measurement, but if you want to see what it would be like to leave it in this position from the bumper to the furthest point back, it's about 41.5 inches, so it definitely adds a good amount of space to the back of your vehicle. It doesn't come with reflectors on it, but we do have a reflector kit available for people behind you to know that you are driving if you use it at night. As far as how close it is, obviously there's a ton of space here, so comes in at about 16 inches, and that's definitely not anything I would worry about. It is pretty far away from my tailgate. We found out that with it this far away, you can get the tailgate fully down and it won't make any contact with anything that you're carrying, which is honestly one of the really nice benefits of having a shank that sits that far out. Additionally, because of how far it sits and just the nature of the muffler of our Ram here, nothing that you're going to store in there is going to make any contact with the heat coming out of your exhaust, so that's a nice benefit as well. The construction of the Carrier is a steel. It's a black powder coated steel, so it's going to be able to hold up pretty well against rust, weather, and corrosion. Additionally, you can see that there are many places for straps to go along the outside, which is a nice feature, especially for a Carrier this large, to have the ability to strap everything down wherever you want it. The bottom floor is a mesh material. It's the same material, but it's mesh so that you can store some smaller different items and they won't fall through, but the dirt, debris, water, ice, things like that still will. The shank is obviously pretty long. There's a little bit of a rise here. It is a 2-inch shank that fits into our 2.5-inch receiver with the reducer. As you can see here, there is also this collar with adjustable wing nuts on the bottom. So if you fit that up to where it goes into the receiver, you'll know exactly where the pinholes align, which is a nice feature. We have an anti-rattle bolt here that threads in. You can hand thread it on this side and secure it with a nut on the other end. It doesn't lock, and we always recommend that if you can, pick up a locking hitch pin just to keep the Carrier secure in the back of your car. Overall, the eTrailer 60 by 24-inch Hitch Cargo Carrier is a really solid option for you if you like all those accessibility options, like the ability to tilt it away and fold it up. Now with that, there are a lot of pins involved and a lot of pinch points as well. So if you want something that also folds up and just might be a little bit easier to work with, you can maybe check out the Curt option. I believe it's 59 inches, but it also folds up and it's just a little bit easier to work with. They both support 500 pounds and they're very similar price points, so it's really just up to you at that point. This was just a look at how the eTrailer 60 by 24-inch Hitch Cargo Carrier fits on the back of our 2022 Ram 2500.